Hey, my name's John and welcome to Ask John D. Jones. Okay, so in today's episode I'm going to talk about the importance of having a good build pipeline when you're building a website with an Umbraco. Now, over the years I've worked with a number of clients. Some clients have been amazing to work with, we've made really good progress, things have been sweet. Unfortunately, there's other clients I've worked with which have been a nightmare, where it's really difficult to get new code out. Every single time you do a release, something goes wrong. There's loads of bugs, and one of the big difference and the big sort of factors is how your build pipeline is set up. Now, I think this is pretty obvious, and I'm hoping everyone out there understands that if you're releasing your code and you're manually copying DLLs yourself onto a server, or when you're releasing new code you have to do manual config updates on multiple different servers, it's pretty obvious that things are going to go wrong. Now, if you're working on a lot of websites, they might want you to do an update at 12 o'clock on a Friday night, because they don't want you to affect their traffic, because obviously if you take a website down during the day they might lose thousands and thousands of pounds, and we don't want that. So the problem is that you're manually copying config over, and in a lot of instances this is the first time they're actually testing a lot of your code if you're manually copying things over. Next thing you know, something goes wrong, and then you spend the rest of the night working until 5 AM, beaving away trying to fix code. Now, you might seem like a hero at first because it's good and fun, staying up till 9 o'clock and being a code warrior, but you're making your life so much more harder. I mean, it's much more fun to go out with your mates and get pissed up and make sure that the process that you're working with is watertight. So one of the most important things about getting there is obviously just making sure that when you work with Umbraco you have an automatic build pipeline. Now, Umbraco Cloud, if you haven't used it yet, is super awesome. Now, the reason why it's so good is you can check everything out from Git, you can make your changes, and then all your work will be automatically deployed onto a server. Now, as long as you're making sure that your config is automatically deployed, this is really simple and really easy to set up a build pipeline with Umbraco. Compared to anything else, if you're just going to run your own Umbraco site and you can't even be bothered, I'd recommend that you use Umbraco Cloud, because it's super easy. Now, if you don't want to use Umbraco Cloud, the next sort of cheapest and free alternative is probably VSTS, or Microsoft's online code management and deployment tool. Back in the day it used to be a bit of a nightmare to use. Nowadays it's actually really good. I wouldn't say it's the best program out there. There's other programs, stuff like Jenkins or Octopus Deploy. They're probably a lot better. Unfortunately, they also cost a lot more money. VSTS is free for up to 5 users, and they've got, as it's done by Microsoft, it's all about, building things into like Azure. Setting up a pipeline with Umbraco and VSTS is pretty simple. Now, another big thing, and what you really want to do, is you need to make sure that you have near like live environments that you do your testing on. Again, if you read an ebook called The Pheonix Project, if you haven't read it, I recommend you go to Amazon and download it. I'll link to it below. It's a really awesome book. It's basically written as a novel. You could probably read it in a day or two. It's nothing really technical, it's nothing really surprising, you just read it through, and it's basically like a case story of a company who manually have different environments. They have superstar developers who don't document anything, they have different servers which are out of whack, they have people on multiple teams, and in those situations and in that scenario what happens is people are always late, people are always stressed, loads of people leave, people's marriages get into trouble because they spend too much time at work and not at home. And all of these things, even though this is a massive scaled up enterprise example, basically there's still things happen in Umbraco. I mean, if you're a freelancer and someone's paying you to release code, you don't want to be liable for releasing any old rubbish out there, which isn't your fault. You want to be able to check some work in and then have some automated tests. It deploys automatically for you, and you know that if you've made a mistake you can click one button and you can automatically roll back any of your changes within 5 minutes, because everything's in source control. Now, on a lot of Umbraco websites I work with, it's not uncommon to see people just not really bothered with this. A lot of people think when they build an Umbraco website, it's just super easy, super quick, that they'll get an Umbraco website, build everything inside it, copy some files over and job you go. And from my experience, I've set up an Umbraco build website, a pipeline, should I say, on my website. I did that and I think it took me like 2 or 3 hours. It was completely free. Now whenever I want to check any code onto my website, I click it, I check it into Bitbucket or VSTS source code control, go into my VSTS, click one button and all my code gets deployed. If it goes wrong, click another button and it all gets deployed. Now again, you know, I'm running my website in Azure, I put it on a very low cost, so you know, all of this stuff's really easy to do, and it doesn't take too long. I think a lot of people, when they come up with Umbraco, they get a bit worried that setting up pipelines and stuff like that is like really complicated, and it's something that, you know, they don't want to look at, so they put it off towards the end of the project. And the problem is that at the end of the project, if you do it then, it's going to take like 10 times longer, and it's going to seem so much more harder than if you did it right at the beginning. Then a lot of people try it once, give up. So I really recommend that if you don't want to spend all night at work rather than getting pissed with your mates at the pub, that you really recommend and you really try and push for whatever company or agency that you're working with, just to make sure that they've got a good automated build process. As I said, that when you're using Umbraco Cloud and the Umbraco team pretty much do everything for you, so you don't even need to worry about it. So just as a bare minimum, I just recommend using Umbraco Cloud. It's really good. Every single time I've created a website with it, it's worked really well, deployment's been really good, and support's been really useful, so I highly recommend it. So anyway, that brings us to the end of this video. As I said, when you're working with Umbraco, if you are copying your files manually onto a server, and if you are manually doing configuration changes on different servers, you're doing everything wrong and you're creating more headaches for yourself than you need to. There's some really easy and pretty much free solutions to prevent you having to do this sort of stuff, and I highly recommend that you get on it. If you really don't know how to do that, I've got some tutorials. If you really struggle, please ask some questions below, because I'll be happy to point you in the right direction. And yeah, as I said, it's up to you, and it's your fault if you're working at your job at 5 o'clock in the morning because you haven't implemented or at least suggested some of these things. So anyway, this is the YouTube channel. If you want to become a legend and you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button below. Now, if you watch these videos, I've been trying to get to 100 people. I gave myself to the end of the year. I think we're on 93 now, so if you hit subscribe, I'll appreciate it. If you leave a comment saying I subscribed, I'll call you a legend. Exactly, so for 5-10 seconds worth of effort, hitting one subscribe button, someone will call you a legend. Where else can you get that deal? If you want to learn more about Umbraco or VSTS or how to do automated deployments, then go over to my website. It's johndjones.com. That's JONDJONES.com. Over there, there's about 200 Umbraco tutorials. There's about 100 articles on just things like TDD, continuous integration and deployment, which will all help you figure some of this stuff out yourself. Other than that, these videos would be really boring if you didn't ask me questions. So if you have a question or you're struggling with something and you want an answer, it won't cost you anything, go to my website. There's a big green contact button there. Click on that, ask a question, and I'll answer it in a few videos time. Otherwise, just leave a comment below. I will read all comments and get back to you. So I hope this has been useful for someone. That's it for me. Hope you have a great day and see you next time. Cheers.